Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Books, Gurrs, and Purrs. My name's Leslie, and for the month of July, I focused on Carmen Maria Machado, and today we're going to briefly discuss Her Body and Other Parties. I love this author's memoir. It was so completely riveting, and she's such a good writer that by the time I read this, I did like this. I think I liked her memoir more, and that just speaks to her skill because I find myself comparing her work to her own work because that's how great of a writer she is. So this is short stories, and I'll just read you the back. In her electrifying debut, Carmen Maria Machado blithely demolishes the borders between psychological realism and science fiction, comedy and horror, fantasy and fabulism. Here are 8 startling stories that map the realities of women's lives and the violence visited upon their bodies, earthly and otherworldly, antic and sexy, queer and caustic, comic and deadly serious. Her Body and Other Parties enlarges the possibilities of contemporary fiction. And I don't know what else I could say about this because I am just genuinely so in awe of her work. I just don't think I have a lot to say other than she takes a fable and like turns it on its head in a way. There's even a short story that's actually then digs into other short stories within that short story. But she does this all in a way that makes sense and runs really smoothly. There's a short story in here that I read, and it's like reading a movie, if that makes any sense. I'm pretty sure the way I'm saying it is not doing justice to the author's writing, but there's definitely like she strikes a tone with a large like creep factor, and so I'll just read you maybe one paragraph. Maybe that'll help. And so on page 212, the short story is called The Resident, and it says, "But I awakened upright, freezing, and surrounded by the kind of darkness insomniacs long for, matte, consuming oblivion. How could I have known that they'd seen? Around me was not the absence of sound, but the sound of absence, a voluptuous silence that pressed against my eardrum. Then a pulse of wind goaded the tree branches, and there was a groan, a whispery shimmer of leaves. I trembled. I wanted to look up for a moon, or stars, or something to tell me where I was, but I was rigid with terror." And I don't want to say too much about this. It was just really good. Usually I do deep dives, but yeah, I don't know what to say. This author has captured my heart. This is another author where I just want to read all her work. So yeah, pick this up. It's worth a read. I did also sneak in another read of a short book, even though I'm focusing on this author, and that's Sana Sana, Latinx Pain and Radical Visions for Healing and Justice. And so this is like a collection, and it's not just written by one author. Every story is a different author, and it's edited by David Luis Glisch-Sánchez and Nick Rodriguez-Villafañe. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that last name wrong. I'm sorry. So I picked this up. I'm trying to remember how I saw this. Yeah, I can't remember. So I'm just going to read you the back of this. Sana Sana, a bridge that interrupts a legacy of pain with the honest sharing of stories. Sana Sana is a witness to the multiple wounds etched into the landscape of Latinx experience and a testimonial to community efforts to heal them. A multi-general anthology rooted in the deep desire to not only acknowledge the various forms of pain and trauma Latinx people experience regularly, but to do so in the service of imagining new futures and ways of being that prioritize healing and justice, not just for Latinx people, but for queer, BIPOC communities, and ultimately for all people. And so I love this book. This was so emotionally driven. You're going to want to look up this book for trigger warnings, because there's a lot of sensitive subjects around abuse that are explored explicitly, and so it is a hard read at times. I appreciated every single I guess because it's nonfiction, so I guess essay or story that the authors crafted, but it is a very hard read, and it's a very hard read from the beginning, even though this is pretty short. I did at times have to kind of put it down and then go to something else. There is one, I guess you could say, essay. It's really early on, and it's the only one I could think of to really talk about here, that I have like a bit of a rebuttal to, I guess. And it's called Self-Care, and it's by Cynthia Estremera. I don't know how to say their last name. Gauthier, Gauthier. And basically this author just kind of speaks on self-care and how self-care comes from like a privileged point of view. And I feel like I see what the author's saying in terms of self-care through like a lens of consumerism. But I personally feel like being able to include self-care into my life or anyone's life is also breaking a generational chain. You know, I'm Mexican American, and I grew up with this mentality that's just been passed down to me. That's just work hard, just work until the day you die. And although, yes, it's important to hustle, it's also important to have self-care, but I don't think it should only be viewed as like one particular way. It's just, how about holding on to your sanity? How about like having a cup of coffee, like maybe just like a 5-minute break? If there's this constant mentality where you're just going, when you do have a moment of alone time, I'll say this for myself. It just took a long time to even feel comfortable, like relaxing. Most of the time I just feel like relaxing or having anything remotely near self-care is like being lazy. And that's something that I had to like work on to push against. Because if I don't take care of myself, then how could I take care of my daughter or any other parts of my life? You know, I have to figure out how to keep myself full so that I don't go into the world empty and just run myself ragged. And so I do understand that some people are in a position where they're like, feel like that's not even a possibility, like resource wise. But again, I just don't think self-care has to mean like you go to a spa or or something like that. Maybe it's just like making yourself a meal that you usually wouldn't indulge in, or maybe you're at home and you just like this is like worst case scenario, when you have too much chaos going in your home, you just go to the restroom, lock the door, and you just sit there and read a book for your own peace of mind. It's not even about taking a bath. It's like you could be doing nothing, you know, and just trying to find like a space for peace. And I don't think there's any problem with someone trying to learn to carve out space for themselves. You know, there's a level of selfishness that is okay, you know, as long as you're just like, it's not 24/7 all about me, right? And so I think that's the only essay, I guess, I took any like minor issue with, but ultimately all these stories are about people expressing their feelings and their experiences, so I'm here to listen to it all. I really enjoyed it. Again, some of this is very painful and talks about assaults. There's some other things that I'd like to discuss, but I just feel like it's so sensitive that I'll just leave it here. I love both books very, very much, and I strongly urge you to pick them up. Let me know what you think about both of them. If you've heard of them, if you haven't, let me know. If you have any questions, please make any suggestions to me. If you have anything else that you think I would enjoy. And so thank you so much for watching, listening. Like, subscribe, comment below, and I'll talk to you later.